Hello, everyone. Welcome to Travillian Next. I'm Brian Love, head of Banking and Fintech, and I'm excited for today's conversation. This one's a little unique. I think it's going to resonate really well with our audience. Just about every bank we talk to is wrestling with succession in some form, and there's a very real fear that comes with it. You don't want to hand the keys to someone who's not ready. So a lot of leaders default to going external, hoping the market will deliver the safer answer. But what's interesting is that when you run an external process the right way, it does two things at once. First, it gives you an unfiltered view of what the candidate market actually looks like right now, not in theory, what's available, what it costs, what trade-offs come with it, and what kind of leader you are really going to have to compete for. Second, it becomes the most honest benchmark you can put next to your internal solution. It either validates that your internal leader can truly stand up against outside options, or it exposes the specific gaps you need to close before you make that leap. Either way, you come out of it with more confidence, a clearer plan, and a decision you can defend to your board, your team, and yourself. And that's what today's episode is about. What leaders learn when they open the aperture, test the market, and then make a succession call with real data and real conviction, whether the answer ends up being external or, as in this case, earned from within. So very proud to introduce my friends up north, Craig Larson, the owner and CEO of Starion Bank, and his new president, Dave Rogstad. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, I wanted to first kind of open it up, let you introduce Starion, maybe take us on a little bit of a look back here in 2025. What has your year been like, maybe from the talent perspective, Craig?
Yeah. Thanks, Brian, and thanks for the opportunity here. So our journey started back in later 2024. We had been through a succession process a few years before, had promoted an internal executive to president, and he served in that role for 2 years into president CEO. We're a $2 billion bank, and he had an opportunity to lead a $13 billion bank. And so, of course, we celebrated his opportunity and happy for him. And he, at that time, also took his right-hand man with him to go over to the same bank. And so we were faced with an opportunity to really look at our talent, decide what we wanted to have for leadership in the organization. And so that was really what 2025 was about. The second in command there of those two gentlemen was serving as our chief operating officer and chief financial officer. He's CPA with a strong operations background. And but we really looked at ourselves and recognized that the real decision was to separate that CFO and COO. So we literally had three senior leader roles that we were looking to fill in 2025. I had served as president and CEO of the bank for 20 years and felt that with this transition, we would begin with a president being named and I would retain the CEO title for the time being. Obviously, I was looking to the future in that role as well. But that was what we were facing in 2025 was the opportunity to fill three key positions at Starion Bank.
Wow. That's a lot for 1 year. Craig, just take me through when that search begins, when you go external. What were you looking for in a search partner? And then, tell me a little bit more about how that search unspooled.
For us, we've never used a retained search effort in the past. We've been able to hire more directly ourselves. But given our size, a $2 billion bank in Bismarck, North Dakota, given the seriousness and the consequences of this, and we really felt that bringing in a nationwide search firm like your own, Brian, would be right for us. We've got a lot of friends in the industry, and so I actually have an investment banker who I trust a lot. He's been a great partner for us in many, many different ways, and asked him if we're going to go down this road, who would we talk to? And so your name came from a trusted partner and appreciated his willingness to sort of offer you up. And of course, you and I got to know each other a little bit. We didn't make that decision lightly. Talked to about three search firms, interviewed them, and really just felt like there was a connection here, Brian. You've got a fairly substantial embedded finance initiative in your organization, and of course we do as well. And so I just saw a lot of cultural links that we have. For us, I think what's important, we're a family-owned business. We have been for over 55 years. My father started the business in 1969. I've been here, I just celebrated 40-year anniversary in the company. And so understanding a family business was really, really important to us. And a community bank. And we like to think of ourselves as a super community bank. In other words, we're big enough to have all the products and services, but we're still a community bank where we know our customers by name and we form those relationships that only can happen when you really care about customers. So we were looking for a firm that could find talent that we couldn't find on our own. We were looking for a firm that would understand us and who we are. And I was really struck at the time, Brian. I mean, you really put the effort in to visit with myself, my family, our board of directors, and Dave and the executive team. And this decision was one that I wanted to make sure the exec team wasn't going to make the decision, but certainly that relationship between the hired president and that team was going to be very important. So I think we involved them all along. We would share with the team or the organization as a whole, I'm sorry, kind of at a high level what was happening. But I think the process that you helped us go through was a very successful one. I think that one of the other reflections as you go through this, it was about 8 or 9 months that we started this work, and ultimately with Dave being named president. But it really we had a very high bar set, and we met some individuals that were very capable. I mean, there's no question, Brian, that you had introduced the folks that were successful in their roles and could very likely have been successful here. But I think between the skill sets, the competencies, and then just the feeling that this culture, Midwestern family owned, was quite unique. We were pretty discerning, and we were pretty, let's call it picky, if you will. And but all through that search, Dave is proving really daily, weekly, where he was growing into the ability to be the president of Starion Bank. So I think the process took maybe longer than we might have hoped back when we started. I think it was thoughtfully done. But I think through the whole thing, the really kind of cool side story, one of the many cool stories, is that Dave elevated himself and really proved to us that he was the right person for the job at the time.
Yeah, and that's really fascinating. Before we hit record, Dave was talking about how he was willing to do whatever it took to help Starion. I think those were his words way back when you maybe were thinking about him as an internal candidate. He had just gotten into that chief banking officer role. And so, Dave, I just wanted to ask you about that. You're a recently promoted talent, wanted to help the bank any way you could, but you felt a little reluctant to throw your name in the ring. Just take me through that period of time. I think emerging talent in our audience might be at a similar moment or faced with a similar moment at some point in their career.
Yeah, I started probably, I think it was 7 months after, I moved up to the executive team. The president took a new position, different opportunity. A few months after that, the CFO, COO left for the same opportunity. Initially, new to the executive team, I came through the really commercial banking background. So how much more of the bank do I know about? What does it matter on the operations side and stuff that I didn't know about? And that was really where the question came in. With the COO opening, I'm like, well, Craig, if you need somebody there, I can fill in, do some stuff during the interim, do that sort of thing. That led from month 1 to month 2 to month 6, and really learning along the way of, okay, a lot of the, our embedded piece, figuring that out from knowing absolutely nothing to at least being able to help out, at least being able to move that along, as well as operations, dealing with the vendors, doing that sort of thing. It's not sort of the thing that you do as a commercial banker. It's not like we're out there golfing every day or anything like that. So it was more of the operational side of things. That was probably in the back of my mind that I didn't have that experience. The finance side of things, I have an accounting degree, so I knew a good chunk of that piece of it. Outside of the commercial side of things, hadn't really utilized it. So it's really trying to get that confidence and like, okay, let's get a little bit of experience. This isn't so bad. Okay. Well, what would the next step be like, and go from there?
Well, that's great. And obviously, Craig, you mentioned culture. It's such a good bet to bet on someone who's already in that culture. You mentioned a little bit about what creates the Starion culture. What was something that was a non-negotiable for any candidate in this search based on culture?
Well, I think we have been pretty determined to understand our culture and know why that gives us opportunities to be successful. And so, there's the family owner angle. We do sincerely treat staff like family, right? I mean, we have a different level of engagement and concern. Lots of stories about how that comes alive. And so we want to make sure that whoever was giving that role had a real employee-centered approach around how they're going to run the organization. We've got great talent throughout the bank, and we want to make sure they feel like they're at a place where they can grow and develop and have a great career. So that was a big one. The relationship side of things. And we're like every bank, we're exploring digital, and we have to meet people where they're at. But, we really win. We're a small business bank primarily. We win by forming relationships where we understand our customers. We deliver customized solutions to them. And so somebody who understood that and knew the value of relationship building in the marketplace. And then, again, I think we think a lot about how our bank operationally functions. At the end of the day, we serve customers. That's our business. But that service only happens with a great support team behind. And so we're looking for somebody who understood all the pieces, how they fit together. And I think a lot of organizations end up with a president that might have been coming up through the commercial ranks, very typical. I think sometimes the other side of the bank doesn't maybe get a lot of attention or a lot of interest. And I think over my many years of running the bank, I was always interested in how all the pieces fit together. And as Dave commented on, Dave, the day after our CFO, COO left for this opportunity, I got the exec team together, and Dave says, listen, you haven't asked me to, but I'd volunteer to be the CEO of the bank. And that alone meant a lot to me. We were in a moment where we needed some help. And here was a guy who raised his hand. Now, Dave's a little modest, I have to admit. And Dave, in his earlier career, started a bank with three other gentlemen. And so when Dave says he's been just a business banker, much more than that. I appreciated the business banking expertise he brought here, but certainly he had a much wider perspective on banking through that experience of starting a bank. And so I think he relied on those things. And the other thing that happened very recently before these changes, we had just gotten into what's become a very substantial embedded finance relationship. And so again, the gentleman that followed the president was in charge of both operations finance and this embedded finance initiative. So we had a lot of parts of the bank that were sitting there looking for some leadership. And so I really appreciated Dave was a quick study. Some days I marveled at how he knew what he was talking about and all the things that we were getting done in the technology, operations piece and embedded. Again, that sort of community bank with the sort of bravery, if you will, or the foresight to think embedded finance might be a great way for us to position ourselves for the future, find new ways to serve customers. All those things were important to us culturally and business-wise as well.
Yeah, and North Dakota might as well be Mars to some Americans, right? And finding someone who has existed amongst those communities. And if I'm not mistaken, Dave, I think you told me one of your favorite places to be is inside of the tractor. Was that you telling me that?
You got that right, Brian.
Yeah. So, just that alone, that cultural element. And by the way, the humility that I get from Dave, who thought maybe, I didn't have enough of this or enough of that, when he probably did. That's humility, right? It's someone who's not going to flaunt things. They're going to be a little more reserved. But I think you were able to be just, realistic and pragmatic, and it all kind of worked out in your favor. So thank you for taking me through that. I wanted to also mention that there's kind of an interesting thought here. Dave winds up becoming the manager of his peers somewhat overnight. So that's kind of a unique thing to explore. How have you been managing people that you used to be side by side in the trenches with? And then also, Craig, you can jump in and talk about the development of the upper ranks as well as the succession that you continue to do.
Yeah, Brian, I think it's a bit of trust built up over the years too. Some of them were really my boss at one point, then to peers for, a short period of time. The rest of the executive team was up here before I was. I was up here for a short amount of time. And I think it's just building up that trust that they have in you, them looking at you throughout the process. It's not like it's an overnight that you're following them the next day, they're following you type of thing. I think as a natural in between peers, even there's a difference in leadership. There's a natural level or looking towards someone as a leader within that group. And I think some of that was already being, was out there. They were looking toward me for some of the answers. We had lost several executives during that time, moving into the COO role, moving into continuing the CBO role and just doing those. It just kind of all came together at one point. And it wasn't necessarily that, hey, today you're listening to me, yesterday I was listening to you type of thing. It's more of a gradual shift.
And then how about, Craig, I don't know if you wanted to respond to that, but I also was interested in the further development, not only of Dave to become an even stronger president, but also to the other members of your team that are relatively new. You were telling me about where everyone's going next month. Love to hear some of that.
A couple of things I would say. So, I've been really blessed over my career at Starion Bank to have some great people that I've worked with and partnered with. And I'm more of the visionary, sort of president and CEO, but I think my strength is probably looking around the corner and thinking down the road. So I've had some great people that just really are very practical, get things done. They see an issue and they're on it. And Dave is really that way. If he sees something, I might dream about it for a week, and he sees the opportunity, just kind of goes and says, "We got to deal with this, whatever the situation might be." So I really feel very comfortable, and I think that was important for me to know that this is someone who is going to balance some of my strengths of vision to be very practical and day to day. As far as his being accepted by his team, I mean, I think I talked to every one of them, and they're very, very happy. I think in part there was concern about would we hire someone who's different. That was a small part of it, but I think there is a real confidence and trust in Dave. When people ask him a question, they'll learn right away where he's at, and I think they like that certainty and that strength and conviction. So I think that's been really good. As far as preparing people for the future, Dave included, we have been thoughtful about succession. And I think it's not accidental that if you look back, we were on the tape and I said we had 3 positions to fill. The first that we filled was with our CFO, and our controller. We had been grooming her for at least a year's time and investing in her growth and development, very, very intentionally and very focused. So that position was filled the first of 2025, and she's been great. We knew she'd be successful. And so we hired that position from within. She'd been working for the bank for over 10 years, had a great varied background. So that was easy to fill. As you heard throughout this conversation, the journey that Dave went on, and CBO for a short number of months, and then all of a sudden change starts to happen, proving himself every day. Now he's the president of the bank, well received by his team, well received by our board, and so another promotion within. But I don't want the viewers to have any notion that we have some sort of concern or rather hesitation to hire talent from outside the bank. And so the chief operating officer position that Dave was filling in until he was named president needed to be filled yet. And we were really excited when we were out searching for that individual. And we had a gentleman who'd been very successful in a $6 billion organization within the state, competitor bank, but we know them well. And so we were able to find what I think is great talent. And again, I was especially pleased that, we're on our journey to $6 billion. We've continued to grow. We have aspirations for the future. We think the opportunities are great, and we'll continue to grow and follow this path we've been on for 50 years. But I love that we hired a talent from outside the bank. He's brought in lots of new ideas, fresh ideas. So, I don't know that we'd always do this with 3 positions, but, the fact we hired 2 from within, we'd invested in folks and prepared them for that opportunity. But when the opportunity is such that the best solution is outside, we certainly pursued that, and we're very happy we did. So, I think we're open-minded about where talent comes from. Love that we promote from within. That's sort of we think a feather in our cap when we do, but also recognizing there's some great ideas out there that we may not be exposed to. We hire and we find those new ideas from without. So that was sort of the rest of the story, if you will, for the 3 positions that we had to hire. And, early on, late in 24, early 25, I was talking to a good friend of mine, a mentor really, and he said, Craig, you got one job this year. You need to find some talent. And you find the best talent you can, and your life will be good. And I see here today very, very pleased with our good fortune to have Dave in this role, to have Liz in this chief financial officer role, and then Chris Gildahl serving as our chief operating officer. I think our talent search has been very, very successful in 2025.
I'd say, again, it's a lot of banks, a lot of your peers are dealing with similar situations and probably haven't had the exact same outcome in their searches. So you've really done a great job there, Craig. I definitely applaud you.
Brian, I want to go back to your last question there, talking about developing staff and also looking outside. We try to develop not just the executive level for the next spot, but as far down as we can, because you never know where that talent's going to be. If you would ask Craig 2 years ago, what do you thought of me as president? He probably would have laughed at you. But what does that look like all the way through? And then also having that outside perspective of looking at other individuals that may not be within the organization, I think also helps to determine what you have within the bank, even if it's for a different level position. If we're looking for a chief banking officer versus a CEO, we may see what a chief banking officers on the outside are compared to what we have here as well, and gives us a better perspective on that. So I just want to, before we move down to the embedded question, I just want to say the whole all the way down throughout the organization, I think it matters on developing those individuals. And you never know when we may pick somebody up that's two levels down that may need to step up all the way through, that's showing themselves as they're within the bank, showing that they want to be a part of something that's more than them as well. So
That was a great response because success, I mean, even though we were applauding for your 2025 succession, it never stops, right? You have to just keep developing because, again, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, it's going to happen. There's going to be retirements or other changes. So thank
yeah.
you for mentioning that, Dave. That's important. But yeah, to kind of close things down with what we should expect from your bank, I'd love to hear what those plans are so that we can get Craig to do some more traveling and have some more fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're always looking to not be behind. We want to make sure that we're not on necessarily the bleeding edge, but we're up there on the forefront of what's happening. We got into a large embedded program. We go back to why did we do that? We're always looking for other opportunities to help the bank so we can help out our communities, help out our core customers. We don't want to become an embedded bank program. We want to do something where we can bring additional opportunities for the customers that we have. If we make additional money doing something else, well, we can bring in some new technologies for them. We can do other things for our communities that we are a part of. So that's really what we're looking to do. We're always looking, okay, what's the next piece? Is it going to be some sort of AI integration? Is it going to be additional sponsorships within our communities? I think we're looking at all opportunities within that, whether it's technology, whether it's we consider our day-to-day core banking activities. We're keeping an eye on what that means, just so that we're definitely not going to be falling behind, but we don't want to be out there the ones that are sticking their neck out for something that isn't proven either. So that I see that's where Starion going over the next 5-10 years, whatever it may be, to continue that growth and look for opportunities.
Craig, you want to close us down? Any thoughts on your bank's future?
We've enjoyed being what I call a super community bank, and we are in every community a leader in those communities, and we think that's important. And we give back freely and very, very big part of our culture. I think we've got some great opportunities in the markets we serve. We're in 3 larger metro type markets in this part of the country, but we got roots in rural America. We're really proud that we're started this organization in a town of 2,000 people 56 years ago. We still today serve that community. We're still the pillar bank in that town. And we're proud of that. We get a lot of our cultural realty by being in a small town where reputation is everything, and you can make a big impact. So I think there's that. At the same time, we are acquisitive on occasion. I think of our $2 billion of assets, about 400 million were acquired and $1.6 billion was organic. So you can kind of see how that numbers stack up. But even today, we're having conversations with folks that are going to sell their banks, and we want to be a part of that. So I think the next growth for us is continue to deepen relationships in the communities that we serve. We have a major treasury management upgrade project going on right now. We've got a great product set, but we see opportunities in that as well. We have private banking here, but again, we have opportunities in other markets that we serve to be involved in that. We have a nice insurance division, so we like to think we can be a one-stop shop, and we're very convenient in that regard as well. So I think the next 5 to 10 years we're gonna grow nicely. We're gonna take advantage of the communities that we're in. We're gonna very likely buy a bank, maybe a couple in the next few years. And we just love what we're doing. We think there's a great future for community banking, and we think that we continue to invest in things we're talking about investing in. We'll be very successful going forward. And as a family-owned business, even as I step away from the CEO role at some point, we've invested heavily in education to our family. I'm second generation. We got third generation that we involve in our company. Nobody works in the business today, but certainly they're all very well aware of the responsibilities of being an owner of a company. And so I think we're positioned in the bank for the next 50 years, and couldn't be more excited about that. And I think this young leadership team that Dave is driving is really well positioned to make that next 5 and 10 year vision of ours come true.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. The organic, potentially acquisitive, some of the tech forward initiatives. I mean, you guys embody everything that Travillian loves to work with. Banks that are true to themselves, true to their communities, and also curious. They want, that they want to touch a different audience and stay relevant and stay independent. It's wonderful. It sounds like you're going to be keeping Dave quite busy in the near term and long term. But I can't thank you both enough for telling your story here on Travillian Next. I've enjoyed getting to know both of you as well as the whole Larson family and the Starion family, and look forward to many more years of interaction to come. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate the invite today.
Yeah. Thank you.